Okay, so this is the session 0 for your character, Freeman.
Session 0 for my character.
All right, if you want to go ahead and just introduce your character and give just like a brief overview of like who he is.
And I can go with these things too.
Maybe leave those out.
Perfect. I like that. That's a...
And I mean specifically describe who he is at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, during the current events of session 0.
All right. So I'm playing human.
Mm-hmm.
Mason Frey. Private Eye. Should I give like a description of what he looks like
Yeah,
too?
yeah. Go ahead
That's
and
what
do
I was
that.
going to go into. So Private Eye, he kind of has a walk like he's analyzing everything in the room. And he has a nice smoker's jacket. Not smoker's jacket. What is it? Like what do we call it? Like a half trench coat with a nice fur
Like
lining.
a frock
Yeah,
coat.
like a frock coat, but with the fur lining on the inside there.
Right.
And,
Sort of like a bomber jacket, but a little bit longer,
Mhm.
like frock coat length.
It is just like dirty. And a little disheveled. Like he's not all put together. He's been working long hours. And he's got his fedora that he keeps dusting the dust off of before he puts it on and kind of just looking around. He's got a 5 o'clock shadow. All like just a constantly all the time, like 5 o'clock shadow. Just really rugged looking. 33 years old. Yeah.
All right. Well, give me a second while I get a couple of these things set up, because it's funny. So, currently, you are on your home planet, the planet you grew up on, the planet of Kranai. Just a little bit over here. At the moment, you're standing on a busy platform on this particular Ascendancy world. Standing waiting to meet the contact for your latest investigation. Your client is late, but that's not unusual. Every other time that you've met with him, he's always been about 5 minutes late. 5.5 usually. 5.5 minutes late. Usually pretty consistent at least.
And is this like outside?
Yeah, you're standing outside in sort of like a busy plaza as you're seeing the actually let me go ahead and add in the it's a busy plaza. You're seeing people sort of moving about their business. Traffic is passing. A mixture of air and ground vehicles that are constantly filling the air of the cityscape with a dull drone. Always hangs in the background no matter what time of day or night. There's something that you find kind of comforting about it. It's a sound that during your stint with the regulators was often absent, given that most of your time with the regulators was spent in space on board enormous command ships. It's not for the first time, I think, since being back on your home world. You take a moment to remember and to acknowledge that sound, like an old friend, kind of that comforting, like, security blanket.
Well, I kind of just lean up against a wall, and I kind of just tilt my hat down, and I pull out a smoke, and I tap it a few times.
Yeah. You're standing there, just sort of leaning underneath one of the bright, flashing billboards. Few and far between on Ascendancy worlds, particularly ones as close to the capital as Kranai is. The Ascendancy tends not to... I mean, as much as they tend to have a working relationship as any other major government does with the mega corporations. They do a lot to mitigate some of the more egregious and ostentatious advertising, not like what you might find in a world within the Commonwealth. That said, as you kind of glance up and down the platform, kind of taking in all of the passerby, who are sort of stopping at store windows and looking in, talking with each other. There is something to be. It's different than when you were a kid here. It's cleaner. It's a lot less. It's not the city of filth that you remember. Certainly those pockets still exist, as you've come to know within your last few years being back, but they are... There's just something about the city that just doesn't feel quite right to you. It just doesn't feel like the same place anymore. It's too clean, too calm. The threat of danger around every corner isn't really there anymore. And some people might find that comforting. Does Mason?
No, something's up. I'm making a note of it in my field notebook.
All right. At about this point, you can see as the rail arrives, and as it does, you glance through one of the windows and notice your client stepping off the rail onto the platform, just sort of glancing around as he notices you and kind of lifts his chin in acknowledgement and walks towards you. He's a Keldro man, probably in his late 300s. Middle-aged, sort of dark reddish-brown skin, with kind of gold-orange striations throughout it. Not unlike the pattern found in marble or agate. As he walks over to you, and just a few inches taller than you, he steps over and says, "So, do you have the? You said you had some files to hand me. Great." And he kind of like shifts nervously. He says, he kind of takes the files from. Do you hold them out?
I have. Yeah, I'm kind of analyzing too. How we've talked before? Is this a new?
No, this is sort of the kind of coming to the end of this case. As he holds his hands out for the file, he takes it, and he kind of looks at it for a moment and doesn't actually open it. He looks up at you. He says,
It's not easy.
He kind of, his eyes sort of, says, "So there is someone else? She's not, I was thinking maybe she was..."
It's all in the file. I didn't say his name.
Yeah, this is Alesto.
Alesto. It's all in the file, Alesto. I go, I do the research, I go and look and find.
Right, of course. I just figured, maybe some advanced knowledge of what to expect might soften the blow a little bit.
Well, I'm, a private eye, not your therapist.
Right, yeah, of course. Here, he reaches into his coat pocket and withdraws a stack of credits and hands them to you. As the rest of your payment. He flips open the file and starts looking through it. He says, "Right. Well, don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I never see you again."
Likewise.
He kind of turns away and then looks back wondering if he should be insulted, and then just leaves, walking away down the platform.
I light up another smoke.
All right.
I kind of just start walking.
All right.
I'm gonna walk towards. Is there a destination you're gonna send me to? Should I just walk?
At this point, it's probably been the better part of the day, the better part of the last 24 hours since you've been back to your apartment.
Well, I take the public transit.
Okay. Yeah, you hop on board the next rail that arrives and begin your familiar trek across the city. As you do, you pass through several different districts. Past the changes in the city becoming more evident as you proceed outwards from the city center. Moving out of the center of the city immediately then leads you to or through, or more accurately in this case, over some of the more impoverished neighborhoods. Ones that, as you look down on them, you're reminded of your childhood growing up in those streets. Maybe not those exact ones, but ones almost indistinguishable from the ones below. The discomfort that you felt in the city center is starting to diminish somewhat as you see yourself treading familiar ground, glancing down, seeing the people from this height passing overhead on public transportation. It makes you kind of understand how the people in your plight growing up could be so easily overlooked by others. From up here, there's a view of that place that doesn't give you the reality of it. Passing overhead isn't like walking through the mud, stepping in the puddles, wondering where your next meal is going to come from, wondering if you're going to make it that far. Looking down on the buildings below you, the twisting warrens of the streets below, it's easy to see that, and you can see easily how people could put that kind of struggle out of their minds. In fact, glancing around this train car that you're on right now, you can see the train is full of people doing exactly that, engrossed in their books or in their terminals, their portable terminals, just sort of some of them on comms calls with family, on business. It's the crush of city life. All of them, as far as you can see, not a single one of them glancing down as you pass over these poorer neighborhoods. You pass outward beyond those eventually, and make your way towards one of the mid-tier neighborhoods as you step off onto the platform and begin making your way down the street towards your home for the last few years as you've been here. As you do so, the buzz of air traffic diminishes somewhat, giving way to a more subdued and distant sound of that same drone, always present but varying in its presence.
Is there still a somewhat populated area where I'm
Yeah.
walking towards my...
Yeah.
Kind of look for like a food truck over there and just grab
Sure.
with something.
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. You stop at one of your regular spots. I'm taking every opportunity to use my new Cypher
And
NPC
I'm
deck.
trying to give them to you.
Yep, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm just gonna randomly shuffle through these and just sort of pick at random throughout all of this.
Everything from the contact to a Someone's selling.
Yep. So, your favorite vendor, you see your favorite streetcar, run by a local guy. In fact, you probably even knew him when you were growing up here. He's a Keldro named Dalo. Um, he's much older. You can see he's kind of handing out. He's like, all right, next, hey, Mason. Finishing up a job?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, good. Somebody's got to make an honest living around here.
Oh, you're making honest living. You're feeding me.
Well, yeah, I guess so. All right. So what it would be? Usual?
The usual. It all
Alright.
works.
You got it. He starts kind of going about preparing. After a minute or so, he finishes, hands your thing. He says, it says, first of the month. Don't worry about it.
It's good.
Nods. Says, all right. Well, you take care. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Next. And you continue on down the street. As you make your way into your apartment building, start kind of climbing up.
Yeah, kind of just. Oh, cool. It's on this, like on a story. It's on
Yeah.
Like on a second or third story, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I have no idea where I live yet.
Yeah, you make your way upstairs to your. The lift in this apartment building has long since been broken, despite numerous calls to the landlord. It's taken some time. The out of order sign has been hanging there for months. So taking the stairs up, you make your way to your building, to your apartment. And just as you get there, you see another individual standing outside your door, looking like they've just finished knocking. And as you take a look, you actually recognize another individual. This would be the landlord.
Oh man.
The landlord's name is Charlene, a human woman, probably in her late 50s. As she glances down the hallway towards you as you're approaching, she says, "There you are." She says,
Yep.
"First of the month."
Oh yeah. Is it that?
She says, "It is, and I think you know that."
I promise. I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. The shortest is within the week.
She says, "You have 2 days.
All right.
2 days, and then you're out. I'm not going to tell you again."
All right. Man.
She kind of glances over. She kind of like passes by, like not taking her eyes off of you, and then just turns and walks down the hallway the way you came. You unlock the door into your apartment. You make your way inside. What does the apartment look like?
Perfect. But not so perfect actually. It's a bit of a mess. There was order at one point. You could kind of see that there was order at one point, but now it's just like a desk that's just got a bunch of papers scattered all over the place. There's like a board that's blocking the window, half the window, that just has a bunch of like pictures on it and like an investigation type board with a bunch of like ribbons attached to leading like this and that, with the connections there between those two. There's kind of like a closet with some clothes in it. Some of the clothes are on the floor. Missed the hamper or whatever. On the desk there's a bottle of whiskey and a glass. It's and I think that's gonna be like a loft sort of. So the bed's kind of up on this section.
Yeah.
It's just kind of just for the bed.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
And I think it's a wood floor.
Okay. Yeah. So you step in, you kind of hang it on the hanger and remove your coat, set it up on the coat rack. As you make your way inside, you can see that just inside there is on the panel on the wall, you can see that you have about 16 new messages. You have a lot of unread mail, basically, that's just sort of been piling up over the last few days as you've been finishing up this case. You kind of move past it, not really looking at it like you normally do. You'll get to it when you get to it. I assume you head and you make your way directly for the bottle.
I do.
All right.
Kind of sit on this chair. It's like a leather cushion, sort of, and pour the bottle into a glass, and I kind of just look around, and I think about organizing everything, and I just take a nice swig.
All right. Yep. So,
maybe I should check those messages I say out loud.
As you're thinking about that, kind of making your way over to the panel, to the terminal on the wall, trying not to think of how, even though you got paid, it's not enough. It's not going to be enough to cover your rent this time around. And you reach the terminal on the wall and start kind of clicking through messages. A lot of it is just a bunch of offers and, like, it's junk mail, most of it. Junk mail, bill, junk mail, junk mail. And it's pretty much your usual stuff. The difference is that there is one message actually came in probably not more than 20 minutes ago from someone named Peach. It says, a mutual friend recommended you. I need help. My brother's missing. Contact me. And it has like a frequency to contact her on.
Yeah. Brother's missing persons. Why me? Sips on whiskey. All right. And the message came in at just
probably 20 minutes ago. Couldn't
right.
be more than, it was about 20 minutes ago.
I'm going to polish off that glass and just fill it up again, and I'm going to make that call.
Okay. Yeah, so you make contact with this person, an Anzalonian woman named Peach. She doesn't give you more details than that, and that's perfectly fine with you. You often deal with clients who prefer to deal with a certain amount of anonymity. In fact, through all this, it's to you, her Peach is probably an assumed name or some sort of alias or something like that. It's hard to say, but yeah, it's certainly. I'll say this much: it's certainly not a typical Anzalonian name.
Yeah, from what I know,
yeah,
at least.
All
right.
But you sort of take that in stride, and you have a lengthy communication with her for a while as she fills you in on the details. Her brother, a man named Vix, was working in a pharmaceutical company. He's a recovering addict who's been working for a pharmaceutical company under the auspices of Silverbreak Technologies, sort of one of their subsidiaries. And he's been working for a program, some experimental pharmaceuticals designed to help people like him, basically, think of it like futuristic methadone, essentially. It's like ways of, a drug that will essentially be sort of revolutionize addiction recovery. Which to you just seems like a lot of bullshit.
Yep.
But that's also not the most important thing about this case. As you're going through, what you're noticing, based on what she told you, is that this pharmaceutical company, on some level, seems to be covering up the disappearance. The more you look at it, let's put it this way: you've taken on cases before, missing persons cases, that turned out to just be nothing. They weren't missing after all.
Yeah, they just need to leave and take some air.
Yeah, they were runaways, or they were. Sometimes it's, a cheating spouse. Sometimes it's a runaway. Sometimes, who knows, any number of things. But the more you start looking at this one, the more it starts, kind of, you're feeling that kind of that detective instinct in you start to kind of kick in as you're looking over some of this stuff.
It's like the goosebumps in the back of my neck kind of go off a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. There's somewhere inside you, there's an alarm ringing in your head telling you there's something to this one. You pull some of the files, kind of basically looking through your notes that you had in the communications that this woman, that your client, gave you.
Mm-hmm.
He disappeared probably somewhere around maybe 3 weeks ago. Was the last time that she heard from him. They're often in regular communication, much more regular than that.
In his name?
Vix.
That's right. I'll get that down before I forget. Yeah, that's right.
Going through it, looks like when she went to visit his place of work to ask about him, they said that he had gone away on a conference. Your client insists that she would have been the first person that her brother told if there was, in fact, a conference. To you, that says cover-up. You're not sure on what level, but on some level there's a cover-up taking place.
Mm-hmm.
There's a disappearance, and somebody's trying to cover it up.
Yeah.
Immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is that the best lead, given that information, the best lead is the company itself.
Yep, definitely. Well, and when we're still talking, I mention I do get the job done, but sometimes my methods require a little more finesse. It will probably cost you just a little bit more, a little extra.
There's a moment of silence, and she just says, "Whatever it takes to get my brother back."
All right.
Shortly thereafter, you end the communication and set about finding some answers. So, where do you start?
Yes. Well, kind of just try to...
Sorry, let me bring some of this back because this is important.
I love it. Can I kind of start off by just kind of trying to piece things together with the information I have on paper right now?
Sure. Yeah.
Actually, I just got home and pay an arm and a foot for this place. I might as well spend some of my time here.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so first thing, let's go ahead and let's have a roll, shall we?
Let's do it.
So this is going to be obviously an intellect task, because what you're trying to do is piece together the information you've got right now to find a good, solid lead, a place to start. The difficulty on this one is going to be a difficulty 4.
So I have to beat a 12.
Yeah, it'd be a 12 or better, yes, for that. So do you have anything that you can apply to this?
I'm thinking maybe Decipher.
Decipher, I think, works pretty specifically as well. Is that what? Do you know what page that's on?
39. I could be wrong. It might be more technical, like
it might
computer
that
type stuff. I kind of just breezed over it.
Decipher. 1 minute examining a piece of writing or code in a language you do not understand.
That's more like the decoding stuff.
Yeah,
Decipher. That makes sense. I guess I have, that's intellect defense.
No, that's intellect defense is, yeah.
I'm just saying, I guess I could just make this roll. I could spend, right?
Yeah, you can spend a level of effort.
A level of effort.
To drop it down to a difficulty 3, so 9 or better.
9 or better, and I feel comfortable with 9.
Okay.
Is there anything I marked down for that real quick? Or do I just know that I have
Well,
that?
in order to spend that, so you have, where do you have an edge?
My edge is in might.
Okay, so a spend of effort requires 3 from your intellect pool.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Do that. All right, 9 or better. I don't want to have a tilt, you know?
Yeah. I can give you this.
Or I could use it. Oh, heck yeah. Let's not put a dent on it. Let's not make a huge, loud dice roll noise. It's an 11.
All right. So, you kind of go through the information and you start looking through it, and there's not much more that you can glean given the information that you have, but you do have kind of an idea of a place to start, which would be checking any sort of like local records, local police reports, looking for similar instances of disappearances, missing persons, local to the pharmaceutical company in the same vicinity. It's a good idea to see, in order to determine where Vix might have gone, why he disappeared. You have to find out why he disappeared, and for that you need motive. In order to find motive, you need to first figure out if it's an isolated incident, targeted, or if there's more going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you take to your terminal, start kind of plugging away information, seeing what you can find. I'm gonna say that for the sake of this, we're gonna ride that same check for this.
Okay.
So you look through and you start looking for any sort of instances of similar disappearances, missing persons cases, etc., reports.
Mm-hmm.
As you do in fact manage to pull up some. They seem. It takes you a while to find them because they don't seem at first to be A, connected to each other, B, in any way connected to this pharmaceutical company. But as you're looking through them and you start realizing, wait a minute, there is a connection. That some of these disappearances, some of them are homeless, some of them are addicts, quite a lot of them are recovering addicts. And some of them have actually, some of these missing persons, as you're looking through, seem to be a lot of desperate individuals. And I'll give you one last thing. Something that you find is that the one thing all of these people who have disappeared have in common, is that all of them seem to have signed up for some sort of medical trial sponsored by the subsidiary in question, the pharmaceutical company.
Damn.
Experimental drug trials are often very common ways. This is something you would know. Common ways for people to make some money pretty quickly.
Yeah. Damn. Very strange. Kind of write that down and kind of get back. And what time is it?
Right now?
Yeah.
It is evening. It's moving. Actually, by the time you're probably done with this, it's probably well into the night.
And there's I would probably surmise as much that I'm not going to be getting anything done tonight, probably.
Probably not. The pharmaceutical company has their headquarters on a planet in Commonwealth space.
Okay.
Not terribly difficult to get to, if you have your own private modes of transportation, which you do not.
I don't.
You'll be able to get there. It'll just be kind of a hassle dealing with customs, but Yeah.
That is how I would do it, though. I would go by public trans.
Yeah.
For sure. And what are the things that they kind of look for at those customs? Like
Nothing that you need to particularly worry about. It's just a hassle.
It's just a hassle. All right, that's fine then. I'm probably used to it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's where I get a lot of my work done.
Yeah. So, we'll go ahead and jump to about 3 days later, as you are arriving.
Just 2 more days. I'll pay you then.
Yeah, you have that conversation with your landlord as she's just like staring at you from inside her apartment. You're just like, seriously, just 2 more days, and she's like,
here's some incentive. I give her part of my payment that I got from my last job.
She looks at it and looks at you.
I'll have the rest, I promise. I'm just doing another job.
She says, fine, but, she says, give me your key.
Oh, really? Does it have to be that way?
She says, you can have it back when you come back from your job with the rest of it.
All right, well, you know I'm good for it. Here you go.
I know nothing of the sort, and the door just closes. Just.
All right. What a gem. Walk away.
All right. So yeah, about 3 days after your first receiving the case, you are standing on an unfamiliar world in Commonwealth space. Standing kind of outside across a plaza from the pharmaceutical company's headquarters. You can see the bright logo on the side of the building, and it names it as Silverbreak Pharmaceuticals. Underneath says a subsidiary of Silverbreak Technologies. And you recognize Silverbreak as one of the mega corporations that has kind of taken on a life of its own, as far as almost being as large as being its own body of government in a way. They have those corporations similar to Silverbreak occupy a region of space outside of both the Commonwealth and the Ascendancy, along with many of the other mega corporations that sort of have their hands in a little bit of everything that happens across the galaxy. Right now, the way that this particular pharmaceutical company is laid out as you're looking at it, there are 2 main compounds adjacent to each other. First is a large building that you've seen complexes like this before. It's pretty standard construction, but this one is a building that's essentially, it's like, there's no better comparison than to say like a museum. It's the public office, basically. When people have questions, when they want to, it's their PR move. This building is entirely devoted to public relations. Like, people want to know about the pharmaceutical company and what they're doing, then they come to this building and they get given the runaround, by the company. They're shown all the spectacular advances in technology and pharmaceuticals, and they talk about the welfare of the future, and et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty much all bullshit. The real story, where real things are happening, is the compound next to it, which looks like a small factory, but you yourself would know, just sort of looking at it, to be the R&D.
All right. Mm-hmm. And they're completely separated, or no connections from one building to the other?
There probably are.
Right.
Like more like skywalks and the like between the two. But otherwise, they're totally separate compounds otherwise.
Okay.
Right next to each other, but yeah. So, how do you proceed from this point?
Well, I proceed forward. How long do I have until I get there? Probably grab a quick little...
You're right across the street.
Yeah. I'm gonna analyze it more. I'm gonna see if if there's any signs. I'm gonna light up a smoke too.
Okay. Really giving me the opportunity to use these sound pads.
Yep.
I like it.
I'm gonna try to see if there's any signs like have a tour. We'll give you a tour
Absolutely.
of this thing.
There definitely is.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to get in without being completely suspicious.
Sure.
Just yet.
All right. Yeah. So you make your way. You make your way inside, and the front desk. There's a receptionist. A Terran man looks up. He says, "Welcome to Silverbreak Pharmaceuticals. How may I assist you today?"
Tour would be nice.
Oh, excellent! You're here for the tour. We've got one. I'll get somebody on that right away.
Thank you.
You see him kind of starting to type away, and kind of as he's typing, he kind of glances up at you. Says, "First time on World?"
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Says, well, I've got you a tour scheduled. Somebody will be down with you in a moment. We've got a tour group leaving in about 10 minutes.
Works for me.
He says, you can just wait right over there.
And I walk over there and I keep standing. Is there a window? I'm going to look out at it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's probably just a few minutes before. It looks like the people who are, the rest of your tour group looks to be a school group.
Mm-hmm.
You see a bunch of kids, varying species, Commonwealth species, sort of all talking excitedly together. Mostly, you're gathering that they're not that excited about pharmaceuticals, more just not being in the classroom at the moment.
Right.
But the tour guide arrives and says, "Welcome everybody to Silverbreak Pharmaceuticals. I'm going to be your tour guide, and if you'll just follow me, we'll go ahead and get this started." And the tour proceeds, and you make your way through the facility.
All right.
It's pretty much exactly what you anticipated. A big dog and pony show.
Mm-hmm.
The whole runaround, all of it pretty much bullshit. Nothing. They cite a lot of impressive statistics, sales records and all kinds of stuff, and none of it talks in like the most suspicious thing about this company isn't so much what they say, but more about what they're not saying, which at no point do they talk about anything even remotely negative about their company's image. None of it. It's the biggest clue that basically everything that they're saying is, well, it's serving its purpose. It's PR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks too neat.
Yeah.
So I try to look for anything that's not neat.
Sure.
Can I be behind this gaggle of students?
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
Not gonna be up front at all.
No.
I'm trying to be...
Yeah, you're sort of moving around from place to place within this building. After a while, you're starting to get the impression that in a building that's intended to put a wall in between the public and what's actually taking place within this company, you're probably not going to find anything. This is an entire building whose purpose is devoted to you seeing exactly what they want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
In order to find anything else, chances are you're going to have to make some unexpected stops on this tour.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Am I gonna take the elevator all the way down to the base?
Yeah. So the first things first.
Okay.
In order to start investigating this place, you've got to get away from the tour group.
Yeah, I just there's a bathroom over here.
All right. So let's go ahead and make this a roll.
Cool.
For you getting kind of
to separate myself.
Yeah, separate yourself out. So it's gonna be we're gonna call this a speed roll.
Okay.
It's gonna be a difficulty of 3.
Okay. What about, can I use my, no, fleet of foot wouldn't really count, would it? Could I use fleet of foot for this? It's on,
Sure. I actually think...
unless me moving suddenly and quickly is going to make it not,
Yeah, that might... This is less about speed and more about... This is a little less about...
It's a speed roll, but it's more about stealth.
Yeah, it's more about your ability to sort of, like, disappear.
I kind of want to spend an effort.
Sure, yeah.
And how much would that be? I don't have an edge in speed.
It's still 3.
It's still 3.
Mhm. So essentially
it's
wouldn't...
12 or better.
Right, so wouldn't... Oh, no, it's a difficulty of 3. The difficulty is 3.
Oh, so it'd be a 9 or better.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm gonna not spend anything. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna roll and try to get a 9 or better.
Sure.
Try to basically just melt away from their perception.
All right. Sounds good.
That's a 6.
Okay. So you slip away. You make your way towards like a restroom, and as you walk down the hallway towards the restroom, and you like push the door open, glance over your shoulder to see if anybody's looking, and then just instead of going in, you continue down the hallway, away from the restroom and the tour group. And as you're making your way towards a door that is clearly noted authorized personnel only, you make your way in that direction, and as you're reaching for the door, kind of glancing over your shoulder, nobody seems to have noticed that you haven't gone where you said you were going, and as you're reaching for the door, it actually opens, and you can see what is very clearly building security stepping out of the door. An Anzalonian man, just sort of significantly taller than you, just dressed in like the building security uniform, steps out of the door and kind of glances up and notices you there in front of him. He's like, "Hey, where are you going?"
Oh, I was looking for a bathroom. I'm with the tour.
Yeah, you missed it. It's just down the hall down there.
Yeah, no, that one stank.
Well, he says, there's no bathrooms this direction, sir.
All right, no worries. I'll go a different way.
He nods and just sort of stands there in front of the door, watching you kind of return down the hallway. He continues to watch you until you're out of sight, and only then does he actually like move and continue on his way.
Towards me?
Yeah, this hallway, there's really only one. There's kind of the door that he came out of is at the end of the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well then, in that case, I'll join. How far along is the tour guide? They moved on significantly?
No, not very far. They're still in the same sort of like open plan room.
I guess I'll keep my eyes out for doors authorized.
Sure.
Personnel only doors then.
Okay. This sort of the tour proceeds, and as you continue on, you see plenty of doors that clearly lead into areas of the facility that are not intended for public viewing, but every time you do, there's rarely an opportunity to slip away, either because the tour group is there, and they would notice, or because there are other facility personnel who are working and who would pretty easily notice. Before long, you come to the end of the tour, back down in the lobby where you first started, and the tour guide is saying, "And if you have any other additional questions, feel free to contact the numbers that are being transmitted to your personal terminals. And while you're in the building, you can always feel free to come and ask me. I'll be here for the next 10 minutes. I hope you enjoyed your tour." And you can see it's like the school groups they all just started like clapping, and then the kids start like buzzing again before their teachers are able to like get them under control and start like doing sort of a debrief. In the meantime, you are sort of once again back down in the lobby, no further along in your investigation than you were when you came in. One thing that's clear to you is that during business hours, you're probably not going to get too much out of this place.
That sounds about right. So, basically waiting until they close and be on this side of the door is what I have to do.
Fair enough.
Unless I can figure out a way of mapping the way to get inside the building from underground.
Right.
Which is a weird...
You're not sure about that, as there might not be another way in that way, but
Yeah. Sewers for this guy.
here's what I'll say that you would know. And that is, from your experience, this kind of infiltration that you're talking about, sort of poking around, it's going to take some time observing, doing some observation, unless you want to get caught, in which case, yeah.
Well, actually, that would be fine with me if I could take, some days to take time to taste the joint.
So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and say that for the next several days, you just sort of poke around the facilities themselves, looking into more disappearances and seeing if you might be able to find some other clues. You spend some time and sending regular updates to Peach, in, like, at least once a day you find something that you can sort of send to her. Maybe at most every 2 days, sending her like a little bit of an update as to the case. You proceed just sort of going through your information, looking into the comings and goings of personnel at the facility. Eventually you find that your best bet might actually, you probably on like the end of the first week of your investigation, you notice a loading dock that seems like it might actually be your best way in. You notice this when a shipment comes in, but by then it's too late to actually make use of that particular one. Through some more poking around, you learn that the next shipment is due to come about a week from that point.
And do I have any idea what kind of shipments these are?
It's hard to say. I mean, chances are it's more materials for R&D. It's, a variety of chemicals, equipment. It could be any number of things. It's hard to say just from observing, as most of what you see them offloading is in crates.
Okay.
But yeah, it's probably your best way into this place after hours. Okay. You see pretty minimal security during the time that the shipment comes in. Yeah.
All right.
So you kick around, wait for another week or so, continuing your observations. And because of this, I'm going to allow this time spent observing, I'm going to allow it to count as an asset on any tasks related to infiltration.
That'll be good. That'll be very nice.
Yeah. So, finally, the day comes. You pick a location to sort of stake out and wait for the shipment. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, right on schedule, the truck arrives. As it rumbles its way over on its repulsor lifts, sort of hovering a few feet above the ground, making its way towards the fence. How are you going to use this to your advantage?
That's a good question. So that's the one way in where they're loading, and there's security there.
Yeah. I
would think one of my ideas is to somehow get inside of a box.
All right.
But I don't know the vibe if that's viable.
It might be. You've got a little bit of time. I'd say you probably picked a location where you could have a little bit of time to maybe get inside the truck.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking either that or some kind of distraction and slip in, but I don't really have distraction items on me.
Right. So your best bet is probably getting into the truck before it can get into the compound. And one of the things that you did notice is that there are is that there is a fair bit of time where the truck has to wait to be cleared outside of the compound before it gets allowed in. That's your narrow, but it's a narrow window, but it's your window.
Okay, that's the window then.
All right, so you make your way over to the truck. First things first, as you get there, you have to. It's gonna be I'm gonna say this is going to be a roll with a difficulty of 3 to get to the truck without being observed.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and have this is gonna be a speed roll.
Okay. So a 9 or better.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that because you do have an asset on this task, so it's gonna reduce the difficulty.
Is it? Okay. Is that on the whole task? Until I get inside.
It's on any task related to infiltrating.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure if I burned it now it'd be gone. Okay, I'll definitely use that then for my advantage. So what does that do?
It just drops the difficulty down. So it's a difficulty of 2 now.
Okay. So 6 or
Yep.
or better.
6 or better.
Right. This is cool. This is really cool. What's this one? The plus.
That's an X. That's a GM intrusion.
Oh, nice! Right off the bat.
All right. So, as you're running up to the truck, you're making your way up to it. As you get there, you make it, but what you see is you hear just a snippet of the intercom that is communicating with the driver. In the intercom, you hear a voice say, "All right, looks like it all checks out. Give us a second to open up the gates." So you've got far less time than you thought you did, and as you arrive at the truck, you see that the lock mechanism on the truck is still active and in place. So you have exactly 1 shot to get this open.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say that the difficulty on the task to get the truck open has increased.
Okay. So now it's a.
So the difficulty to get into the truck now. This is gonna be an intellect roll with a difficulty of 4.
Okay.
Yeah. To get that lock. Because it's not a complex lock, but it is something that you're gonna have to do quickly.
Since so much time has gone by, do I get my intellect back from that last spend I did?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
good to know.
Sorry, yeah.
Nope.
You definitely would have had the time for.
Because that'll make a big difference on what I spend here.
Yeah.
Because I definitely.
Essentially, you can get rid of any spend that you made before this infiltration.
Perfect. Awesome. That's all I needed to do. I definitely want to make that a little easier on me. So.
You're gonna spend a level of effort.
I am going to spend a level of effort.
All right.
And it's definitely going to be, since it's, from my intellect, so if I,
So it drops the difficulty down to 3. You have an asset on the task, which then makes it 2.
All right. I'm sure I can't
6
roll.
or better.
I'm sure I can't roll that poorly again. Yeah, we both did the look. 10.
Okay, great. So you're running, and as you get up to the truck, you can actually see it. As soon as you reach it, it starts moving. As you can hear the gates starting to open, and you get to the lock, and you quickly just start tinkering with it. I'm gonna say in this instance, it's a digital lock, but you've dealt with things like this before.
Oh, yeah.
You have a way of tripping them mechanically.
I have to. I go in weird places. I have to know how to.
Yeah, like this. There's a way that you can trip these locks mechanically.
Cool.
It's digitally these locks are pretty secure, but mechanically they have a flaw, and it's one that you have learned to exploit over the years.
Oh, I probably did this as a kid.
Yes, they haven't changed all that much since you were a kid. But you hear that satisfying click. The indicator light that the lock is active doesn't change, but you definitely hear the lock click. And you quickly open the hatch of the truck and jump in right as it starts pulling away from the location. Kind of close it behind you, re-engaging the lock. So, standing inside of the truck, you can see a variety of crates around. I'm not going to make you roll for it, but you do take some time kind of looking to see if there might be one that, that might have some space for you in it, and you do eventually find, like a crate that seems to be not completely full.
All right. Perfect. What's in it?
Looking at it, it looks like it is probably just a bunch of empty syringes. Like, just syringes that are, like, packaged and, yeah.
Yeah, I just bury myself under them like packing peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
No, I mean, like, they're not loose syringes. There's literally just, and they're not even the needles, just the syringes themselves.
That's
and, like, yeah.
Otherwise, that'd be a roll to see if I get
yeah.
Poked.
Yeah, and they are packaged, so they're just a bunch of boxes. It's basically a crate that they only filled half of, because apparently they ordered a certain number of syringes, and so they didn't have enough to fill all of the crates completely. So,
well, since I weigh more than that crate weighs, is there any information on the crate indicating how much that crate weighs?
No.
Good.
No.
I don't want to make it. Good. Okay. I'm just gonna hide then.
Okay.
I'm gonna hide.
All right. Cool. You just sort of sit, and eventually you do feel the crate get lifted and offloaded, and you can feel yourself moving. You can hear voices around you, as just sort of muffled voices, just sort of workers chattering back and forth. Nothing significant, small talk mostly, just sort of the kind of conversation that happens on a work site, But eventually, all of that sound dies away. You can hear a door closing somewhere, like a big bay door. It sounds like, and you don't hear anything. You wait for a few more minutes, and a few more, still not hearing any sounds, and finally you sort of judge that it's a good time to come out.
Alright, come
Okay.
out.
You open the crate and you find yourself in sort of not a storage facility, not a storage holding area, but like it looks like the crates were just offloaded inside and were not stored. It seems like what you have observed over time is that at night there's basically nobody here. A skeleton security crew.
Right.
So this kind of tracks. Like, looks like the shipment came in and basically it just gets temporarily stored on the God, what do you call that? Where trucks like load and offload.
Loading dock?
Yeah, the loading. Yes, the dock. Yeah, so basically it looks like all the crates, the shipment just got offloaded onto the dock and onto the loading dock and is left there waiting for the morning shift to come in and start putting stuff away.
Got it. Cool. Well, if I have a moment, if I feel like I have a moment, I'm gonna see if I can check out what other things are in these crates, maybe.
Sure. You sort of go poking around in the crates, looking. Some of them are, some of them are do have like a bit more security to them, so they're a little bit, they're sealed, so those are harder to get into without leaving a trace.
Right.
But the ones that aren't, you kind of go through them, and it's pretty much what you expect. Shipments of chemicals used in creation of pharmaceuticals, lab equipment, a lot of it is actually just syringes, test tubes, that kind of stuff. Just like standard lab equipment. It looks like a resupply.
Is there any resupply, like I don't know, like a scrub or apron or some kind of outfit?
Excuse me.
Just occurred to me.
You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. Yeah.
All right. I'll grab that.
All right. Yeah. So you grab one of those, you open it up, and you sort of get yourself into it.
I'm doing
All right. So, you start moving about the facility. Let's go ahead and this is going to be sort of just a general, like, search sort of check.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's going to be an intellect roll with a difficulty of 3. I'm going to say your asset is not going to apply here because this is not about infiltration. This is more about the investigation part of it.
Can I use for this particular thing? Could I spend some of my spend from any of the pools?
Right, because you have that.
Yeah, I'm forgetting which one it is.
Yeah.
From, but you remember.
Yeah.
And I'll remember it later. But if I could do that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Spread it out a little bit, and I'll spend it from. Well, it's a 9, so I don't know. That's not that bad, right? It's a 9 or better.
Yeah, difficulty 3 is 9 or better.
Yeah. I'll spend some from speed. So I would spend how much? Probably 3.
Yeah, that's how much effort requires.
Well, that's not good either. If I really look at it. Ooh, boy.
I want to see if the wording of that.
Yeah, for sure. Just to make sure we're not.
Yeah, because is that from your descriptor or your focus?
Oh, I want to say that's from the focus.
Okay.
I want to say.
Okay, let me see.
I'm also not entirely sure.
It's too far. Yes, it is. So you can spend 20.
So if I spend.
It doesn't really say whether or not you can spend from different pools for the same one. I suspect not, though, because of the way that Cypher works. It would be very hard to apply an edge if you had it. So I think you have to choose.
And that would be the one for all.
Yeah. Your edge is in might, right?
It is.
So if you spend a level of effort out of your might pool, it'll only cost you 2 points.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of the advantage of that, is
right.
that you may not have an edge in intellect, but you can spend it out of, yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's down to difficulty 2.
Yes.
Okay. So 6 or better. Wow, 6 exactly.
6 exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So, you kind of wander around, poking around here and there. Eventually, you manage to find your way off of the loading dock and into the lab facilities themselves. It is sterile and uncomfortable in a way.
Yeah.
It's like in the same. It's sterile in the way that like hospitals just seem sterile. You wander from place to place. It's, if possible, it made even more eerie by the lack of traffic. There's nobody here. From time to time, you'll notice some security, but it's not hard for you to hide from them and avoid detection. At one point, you come across a room that is significant because as you look inside, you can see that there are people in there. They look like lab workers, dressed in lab coats. Looking at there's these large metallic cylinders that they're sort of observing. You can't quite see the contents of them from the angle that you're looking from, but you can see that each of these large cylinders has some sort of observation window into them. The cylinders themselves probably aren't more than, maybe at the most, probably about 7 or 8 feet tall, probably about 5 feet in diameter, and And as you're looking at them, you can see them, like, they have like panels on the side of them with like various readings that you can't interpret from here. But you can see there is a room nearby that is adjacent to the chamber that you're looking into, that appears to be some sort of observation room. So right now you're kind of standing in a hallway looking through like a window, trying not to be seen. But right next to it, on the opposite side of the window from you, along from where you are in the hallway, like across that window, there looks to be some sort of observation room.
And there's people probably in there. Maybe.
You can't tell from here because basically the way you know this is you're standing on one side of this window, looking into the room, and you can see what the activity inside, but you can also see the windows from the observation room, and they appear to be one-sided.
Okay.
So, like, you can't see into that room, but...
Could I figure how to get to the observation room?
Yeah, you can see the door just a little bit down the hallway from where you are.
Ooh. All right. Maybe I'm gonna go up there then.
Okay. So you make your way over. You reach the door, and just sort of quickly peeking inside through the small window. It actually doesn't look like there's anybody inside.
Interesting.
The observation room. It's hard to say from this angle because basically the way it looks is immediately inside the door. There's a stretch of hallway that is maybe 5 or 6 feet before it goes into some stairs that go up into the observation room itself. And from this angle, you can't quite see in there, but you can see most of the room. Let's put it that way. You can see most of the room from where you are, from most of the observation room. But there's at least about 10% of that room that you can't see from here, and that's plenty of space for there to be somebody in.
Guess I'll duck in then.
Okay.
Quiet-like.
All right. I'm gonna have you make a roll here. It's gonna be a speed roll, difficulty of 3. And it's not really related to infiltration of the building. I mean, it is, but not in a way that your observation could have helped you. So go ahead and... So this would be a 9 or better.
6 again.
Okay.
Wow.
As you open the door, somewhat unexpectedly, the door hisses open and makes a beep sound as soon as it opens, which you sort of stop as listening. You don't hear any reaction from inside the room.
Oh. That door reacted.
Yeah. You kind of cautiously make your way in, walking up the stairs. As you reach the entrance to the room, you glance quickly inside. Doesn't appear to be anybody in there.
I'm going to observe the heck out of this room.
Okay. Yeah. So there's not much in this room. Seems to be primarily for observing below. Mm-hmm. Probably during the day, more than likely, is where like supervisors or like company execs who are coming to check on, progress of certain projects would come and be shown the progress below without disturbing the actual work that's taking place. Okay. So this room doesn't have a whole lot in it. There's a panel, like a control panel that you can see that looks like it just at a quick glance looks like it operates the opacity of the windows. Okay. As well as you can see where there's a control for a intercom system.
Oh. There's nothing in here with no notes or anything. Like a computer or.
Actually, there would be a screen that currently is displaying only the company logo, but it looks like there's probably a way to get it to display some of the same readings that are coming from below.
If I can try to do that.
Okay, this is going to be an intellect roll. Intellect task. Yes. Difficulty of this one is going to be 4.
Does this count as my infiltration, sort of?
Yeah, sure. I'll allow you to use that as an asset on this.
Maybe decipher?
That's going to come into play here.
Okay.
Yeah, but...
or not.
Decipher is going to come into play probably after.
Okay.
because basically, like, right now there's no information to look at.
That's a good point.
Right now you're just trying to, like,
log in.
you know what? Logging in isn't that hard, so I'm not going to make you make a roll for that. I'm going to make you make a... So Decipher is going to come into play here. So basically, here's what happens. Your fingers kind of play across the controls, and before long you're able to figure out... It takes kind of a little bit of trial and error, but before long you're kind of able to figure out how to, like, get the monitor in the room to display some of the readings that are coming from below. They're being taken from below. So yeah, now this roll will be sort of to, like, figure out what you're seeing here.
Okay. So now what would be the final...
So it's an intellect, and Decipher, I believe, works in... This is an Explorer thing, right? Decipher?
Oh, yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oops, that's not the right direction. Decipher. Make an intellect roll of difficulty 3 or higher based on Okay, yeah. So you kind of just have to spend a minute, and then you have to make a difficulty 3 intellect roll, which is kind of what this was anyway. But
oh darn!
But with Decipher, here's what Decipher is going to get you. It's pretty much going to be a guaranteed, like when you succeed. If you were just making this check without Decipher, the difficult. Oh, it was a difficulty 4, wasn't it? It was a difficulty 4. So Decipher is basically gonna make it a little bit easier. But also, if you're making this check without Decipher as an ability, without somebody with a science background, it's difficult to say exactly how much information you'd be able to get and understand.
Right.
With Decipher, it's gonna help you at least get the gist of what is going on.
I just need like cliff notes.
Yeah. So that's basically what this is gonna get you. So, yes, it's a difficulty 3, which. You can spend effort if you want to.
I'm going to.
Okay.
I'll take it from my intellect pool.
Cool. All right, so difficulty 2.
I like those numbers.
Yeah, 6 or better.
I've been rolling a 6 twice in a row now. Make that a 5 though.
Ooh.
Make it a 5.
Ooh.
I know what's up.
Oh no.
What's up? It's like the dice know how this is supposed to go down.
All right. So as you're looking, hold on. I just realized we might need a different. As much as cool as that is,
it's definitely cool.
We need a.
Now we're in a different.
That's too much. That's too much. No, that's also too much. Hold on. I'll get there eventually. We're gonna go with.
Heck yeah. I rolled a 5. I just under what I needed. That is. It laughs at me. It's like, oh yeah, you rolled a 6 twice in a row. You think you're gonna be lucky?
All right. Sorry, I have to listen to this. Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. Let me just check how levels. Okay, levels are still good on that one. I might drop it just a little. Okay. So, anyway, you're kind of looking over some of this stuff. The best that you're able to tell, the research that's being done in the room below you is genetic in some way. It's some kind of genetic research. The specifics of it are something that you're not quite able to figure out.
Yeah.
I
know this is a little late, but could one of my pieces of gear be like a USB?
Yeah, I sort of imagine that's something that you would probably have, like basically like some way of transferring data.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I would probably do.
Okay, so like right now, just on the fly, you're having a hard time parsing this, and you think you're gonna probably need some more time to try to like put this together and figure out what exactly it is that you're seeing here. But it looks like it's genetic research of some kind. I'm gonna give you this one for free, because this is something that you, now being at a different vantage point, would be able to see. At this point, as you look down, you actually see as another cylinder is being brought out from a different part of the lab and is being moved, and it stops basically like right where you can actually see. For the first time, you can actually see through the little small observation port in the cylinder. And at first, you're having a hard time as there are like some of the technicians inside are standing in your way, but a couple of them sort of eventually disperse and start checking some of the readings on the cylinder, and you have a clear, unobstructed view to that cylinder. And as you look inside, you see a person. And what's more, you recognize the person. You don't remember the name offhand, but you recognize their face. This is one of the missing persons that you saw when you were researching, when you were looking into similar disappearances to Peach's brother. This is one of the missing persons that you saw.
Dots connected. Some.
He looks to be in stasis of some sort, judging by the frosted look to the observation port. Probably cryostasis.
Ooh. Okay. Huh.
What are you doing?
I'm going to... And so can I assume then that other cylinders probably might, maybe not?
Maybe. It's hard to say. But given what you know so far, it's presumably yes. You still have in front of you all of this data that is... were you already downloading it?
I'm downloading
okay.
as much as yeah.
Okay.
Because I want to look at it further later.
So we'll say that basically like this cylinder moved into view as you had already started the transfer, the data transfer. As you're sort of like looking down, looking up, and you kind of focus in on that face, you're like, huh. And as you're doing that, I'm going to throw a GM intrusion at you.
There it is.
So you hear just a very small beep, 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 beep from the console, and as you look away from the goings on in the room, you glance down at the console and you see a small red light blinking, and on the actual screen itself, you see unauthorized data transfer detected.
Ooh, there it is.
You kind of look around the room, and you look into the room below, and you actually see, as some of the technicians, you see that their body language has changed. They've like sort of stiffened and looking. One of them even glances up towards the observation room that you're in. You know that they can't see you, but like that doesn't stop you from sort of having that reflexive
reaction.
trying to duck down. But you see that they look down, and then one of them kind of like you see them talk to each other, and one of them points up to the observation terminal, and then points to like the terminal on his wrist as well. And you can see as a few of them start making their way out. You have moments. Right now the data transfer is at 90%.
But I only have minutes.
You have probably about 30 seconds to get out of this room if you actually want to be able to like. Otherwise, they'll intercept you if you spend any longer than that.
I don't want to be intercepted, but I do need the information. Can I recover hopefully what I have on there if I take out the chip, or is it all going to be for naught?
You don't know. You have no idea. It's possible either way. Chances are, whatever is in the midst of being transferred right now at this exact moment will be corrupted, but whatever has already been transferred is probably going to be okay still.
I'm going to take what I have, and I'm going to run.
Okay.
I'm gonna fleet foot my way out of that.
All right.
I hope I can use that.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
So
we're going to say that this is going to be pretty tough because the timing of this is quick.
I know.
Because, so this is going to be a speed roll with a difficulty 5.
Okay, so we're looking at 15 or better. I'm going to use my fleet of foot to make...
Actually, I'm not sure that it applies here either. I think it
sounds cool.
Fleet of foot, I think, makes it so that you can make a speed roll to attempt moving a short distance and taking an action in a combat round.
Oh, in a combat round, not like an escape round.
Probably not.
Okay. I'm going to assume that's the case.
Well, I mean, you can use it that way. It just won't affect the difficulty of this roll.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. If you succeed at difficulty 2 speed roll to run, you can move short distance and take an action in the same round.
Yeah.
Anywhere. Okay. So what can I use for this? I spend some stuff from my...
You spend a level of effort.
Yep.
And I'm gonna say that your asset is gonna count here because while this isn't related to infiltration, it is about like remaining undetected. So I'm gonna say that your asset that you gain for observation is going to count here. So that drops the difficulty down to 3. So it's a 9 or better.
Okay. All right. I'll take it.
All right.
I'll take it. I don't know if there's anything else I can do. Oh, one of my skills is running. It's a physical skill.
Yeah, you're trained in running, so in running test, so actually that would drop the task or drop the difficulty down to a 2 or better. 2 or better.
Okay, so my lucky number. Let's see what happens. I got an 8.
Okay. Sorry. The difficulty is 2. The number is 6 or better. That's what I was trying to say. You understood.
Yeah, I understood.
All right. Okay. So you yank your drive out of the port and just start running. You exit the observation room down into the hallway and start running back down the hallway, where you remembered seeing like a maintenance closet.
Mm-hmm.
And you run, and just as you are sliding into the maintenance closet, you hear the door to the lab behind open, and footsteps running out into the hallway. You actually even see them literally, like they're looking the opposite direction of where you're running. So you catch a glimpse of them just before the door to the maintenance closet opens, and you duck inside.
Okay.
When the technician stepped out into the hallway, looked the other direction first. That's the only reason he didn't see you, as you just like duck into the maintenance closet, and you just sort of like the door just. You're just sort of sitting there, and sort of listening at the door for a moment. You can hear the voices further down the hallway. You just kind of nod. It seems like they might be moving the other direction. And as you kind of relax slightly for the moment, you look around to realize that you're not actually in a maintenance closet. It looked kind of like it might have been, but from the outside. But you realize now that that was pretty much just sort of a guess on your part. The room that you're in right now, as you're looking around, you actually see is a large, it looks like sort of a storage facility almost. But what you're noticing, looking around, is that it is full of a bunch of these cylinders. At a quick count, probably about 20 or so. Each one of them appears to be occupied.
Okay, I'm gonna be looking at some cylinders then.
Okay. Yeah, you kind of walking up and down, looking at these. Most of them, they all appear to be pretty young. Mostly individuals in sort of the prime of their lives. You recognize one or two of them from other searches that you did. None of them look like Peach's brother. You sort of go from cylinder to cylinder. As you approach kind of the far corner of the room, you actually notice that there is a door on this side of the room, on sort of the opposite corner from the door that you entered. And the reason you notice it is because as you're stepping over in that direction, looking at that kind of last cylinder, the door is opening. And as you kind of look ready to like make some excuse or defend yourself, instead you hear a clattering sound and something comes into the room. Something like kind of flies into the room. As you look around, you notice a small capsule, probably no more than like 5 or 6 inches across. And as you're looking at it, you see as it sort of like the two halves of it rotate across a seam in the middle, and it pops open in the middle, and you hear just sort of the hissing sound of like gas escaping, just.
Shit.
And as that happens, you can see the door, like as it had opened very like partially to like send this thing in, it closes again. The room immediately begins filling with this gas as you start coughing, and as you kind of like go to the door, kind of pound on the door, you feel yourself like you feel that kind of tunnel vision sort of starting to like take like the edges of your vision turning dark, as you just like suddenly feel yourself collapsing slightly, and just the next sensation that you feel as everything goes dark around you. You feel the cold of the lab floor, of the storage facility floor on your face, on your cheek, as your eyes sort of very hazily open, as you see a pair of boots in front of you, right in front of your eyes. As you look, you glance up, you see a face wearing a face mask across the lower half of the face, lab coat. Somebody looks down and says, you can hear a voice just, well, somebody has been nosy. And you just see the head turn and speak to somebody out of sight and says, take him with the others. Looks like we've got ourselves another lab rat. And that's where we're going to stop.
Man. Ooh, yeah, I was like, yep, sounds good.
All right.
Wow, that was
cool.
Fun.